Good morning. My name is Aaron Hunt. I am a partner at Stace Hammond and the head of Migration Partners Division. Today is the 14th of August 2020. It is 9:15 in the morning. And for those of you who have been watching my videos for a while, you will recognise my apartment. New Zealand Auckland is back into lockdown, we call level 3. We have 4 stages of lockdown. 3 is the second highest stage. We went to level 3 on midday Wednesday. It was announced Tuesday night, so the government acted very quickly. They found 4 new cases in the wild in the community of COVID-19 on the Tuesday afternoon. It was confirmed, and by that night they were announcing lockdown, and the following day midday lockdown of the city. We see as being a good fast reaction to a new outbreak. As always, this is not advice. This is generally just our update on what's happening in immigration. Please don't take this as being advice. To give you advice, we need to know your particular situation, which means us being in contact, you being a client, and us looking through your particular details. There's a lot of little fine pieces of information we need to know from you, so we can't give advice, via this video or even via the comments. Now, supposed to be a video done yesterday. I'm sorry I ran out of time with some urgent matters. Yesterday we did have a session with Immigration New Zealand looking at the border exceptions. We didn't learn much new information. We'll go through what we did learn and sort of what they kept on pushing as being the message. The thing that they said many times, they started with it and said it every sort of 2 or 3 minutes, was that the threshold for exceptions is very high. So if you are looking to try and get an exception to come across the border or to apply for a visa to into New Zealand, you have to meet a very high threshold, and a very small number are being granted that. Now, there is sort of 2 paths to come in. There is the individual path and through the company. So we'll quickly cover those. The individual path is for those who have jobs in healthcare, those are critical health workers, or for those who are looking under humanitarian reasons. So there is an online form now. It's now cost $45 to apply. Just trying to discourage people from applying repeatedly. So you can do it that way. I did have inquired to someone whose employer couldn't find how to do a healthcare application, and that's because it's done under the individual rather than actually by the company. So that was the first one. And of course, humanitarian. Now with humanitarian, it needs to be outside the norm. So as much as I've talked to a number of my clients who do have their partners overseas, the requirement for humanitarian is the same as we would have in the courts or under the immigration operational instructions, is that it has to be outside the norm that is being caused by the lockdown or the burden created by lockdown or COVID. So there's be something special, and again, it's a high threshold. Immigration New Zealand will also look is the alternative options. In the case, so if it was a humanitarian basis, if staying in that country was going to be an issue, other countries that the person can go to, is there an extreme health situation? Is staying in that country going to be extremely poor for their health, and they have a right to be here? So you may have someone who wants to come to New Zealand because their partner is here, but they have a health issue which isn't being treated properly in their home country due to COVID or lockdown. They may have a grounds to get that humanitarian allowance to come into the country. So, but as I said, I'll say once again, is a high threshold, and very few of these will be granted. So that is a $45 fee that you will be paying most likely, and it won't go anywhere. You'll be declined. How it's working is that the applications are put through. There's sort of a first lower level team who look at them and look at the ones who have a possibility of going through. They then get passed on to the experts. So there's a panel of 10 experts. And those 10 experts will look at it. And I think they're granting about 70% of the ones they get to that second level, but the vast majority don't get to that. The first level look at it and go, no, that is not fit within the instructions, and it doesn't go any further, but the fee is still charged. Now, I mentioned in a previous video that there is other paths. If this path does not work, again, it has to be pretty unique situations. This path, there is some pretty specific rules, specific requirements they're looking at. There is another path that we can help our clients with, but we will, if someone comes talk to us, if you think you have, a sexual situation, but they haven't worked okay with this path, talk to us. We will look at whether this other path is an option. There's a path that has actually been given to us as an option by an immigration staff member as an alternative for those situations which are unique but don't quite fit in within the rules, with the exceptions. So it's humanitarian. So yeah, if you are working or you have a job in that healthcare sector, you could possibly apply for the individual one as well. The company one is for those who are looking to bring in staff who are working in areas that aren't healthcare. So they're the ones who may be listed in one of the listed events or listed industries. So there's a hospital being built, there's road works, there's the America's Cup, the Antarctica program. They apply through the company page. Now, there was a comment here I saw. They mentioned their comments from the chairman was that the online form it's frustrating. It's not user friendly. You've got to complete it in one go. You cannot save your work, come back to it, and it's not an easy form to fill out. Now, I have looked at the form and I've looked through it, and it could definitely be better created. The view of the chairman was that it seems to be another deterrent to using it, and I'm sure Immigration New Zealand are trying to stop the mass applications for border exceptions because they have been getting a lot of them. That's why it's now free, and I don't know if I'd go as far as saying that they've deliberately created a difficult form to use, but it definitely could be made a lot easier to use. For companies applying for a border exception for their employee, it's $380 is the price for that. Now, there was a question I've been asked a number of times, and I have spoken to immigration about it, and it's always been one of those things where they can never really give us a straight answer. And it was those New Zealand citizens and residents who wanted to go overseas to bring their partner in with them, because there is an allowance under the exceptions for a partner to enter New Zealand if they are with the New Zealand citizen or resident, even if they don't ordinarily reside in New Zealand. Now, these people would generally not qualify under the border exceptions that you apply for. The Immigration New Zealand person who was speaking at the event said that they have seen people who have left New Zealand and then returned with their partners. They would not encourage or discourage this approach. This is just an approach some people are taking. There is no guarantee the partner will be let in. So there's always that to remember. You could fly there, possibly quarantine there, and then look at coming back, and they could be told at the border, no, you're probably not even leaving the country of origin. There is a risk of infection, of course, of going back there. I've told clients not to go to these high-risk places, especially if there's a health concern on their part. Risk of being stuck there. You could go there, and then there could be a difficult with flights. We have clients around the world who, New Zealand citizens, who you just can't come back into the country because there are no flights, or the flights are fully booked, or the quarantine is fully booked. And of course, there's no guarantee of being approved. So that could be a trip to another country and then end up with nothing. It is a high risk approach. It can work, but we're not going to encourage clients to do it. So that was sort of generally what was covered yesterday. Now, another note here we got from NZAMI, the weekly news, is that they're raising with Immigration New Zealand the fact that a number of offshore migrants will have had visas but couldn't enter New Zealand within the specific dates of those visas. And I know a number of you have asked about that in the comments. They're saying that surely a variation of conditions should be allowed to sort of push that entry date back to a point where the border has opened again and that visa can be used. We're still waiting for a result, a response from immigration on that. Again, I think it's going to be sort of some time coming. Immigration New Zealand probably won't give it an idea of that until we're certain the border is going to be opening soon. And the last thing to look at today is an update on the processing times for visas for those in New Zealand. Now, we do know that back in March, there was questions being raised about the processing times of essential skills work visa, which was taking 64 days at the time. And then, of course, the talent visa for accredited employers, which was taking 4 months. This was sort of pre-COVID. And then post-COVID, we did have a lot of the foreign branches closing down, but we also had the foreign applications stopping. So now we're having foreign branches opening up. We'd expect the overseas sort of branches would be being used for these New Zealand applications because there are no overseas applications taking place. But that doesn't seem to be the situation. we're now looking at actually even slower processing time. So essential skills now 71 days, so it's taking a week longer than previously. Even a variation of conditions, which should be a relatively simple thing. You know, you're moving from one employer to another employer in the same area doing the same job, is taking 47 days. Even if the position is on the skill shortage list, so it's a high demand position, they're having to wait a month and a half for that variation of change, variation of conditions. So we're not quite sure as to why there is taking this long, slow process. We know that the skill market applications are being delayed due to the government limiting how many residency applications can be granted, but we don't know as to, there's no real reason as to why the other applications are being delayed. We are seeing some come through a bit faster than perhaps 6 months ago, and that's the visas under partnership can be come through pretty quickly, perhaps in a matter of weeks. However, 2 years ago, that's happening in a matter of days. So even those are sort of all slowed down since 2 years ago. So we're not quite sure whether it's a political thing or what's going on in immigration, but this has been noted with immigration that these delays don't make sense, or that we should have things going through faster. It doesn't make sense as to why those ones have slowed down, and that seems to be the issue that's been raised with immigration. Hopefully, we'll get something out of them as to what is this delay. Because I know for employers in New Zealand who need these staff, and for those people who are already in New Zealand, this is a major. They don't want to have to wait 6 weeks or 8 weeks to get a staff member across when it should be a relatively simple process. So we'll come back to you on that when we hear some more. And that's it for today. There has been much going on. Well, there's been a change of scenery going on, and otherwise, immigration-wise, there has been a massive change in the last few days. We will let you know if there is. Until then, stay safe. Kia kaha. Wear your face mask. I actually had mine nearby to put on, but I put it out of reach. So, yeah, stay safe. Be all good. We'll come back to you when we have more information.